Welcome to Vital Ventures, the podcast where we uncover the secrets of successful health and wellness entrepreneurs. Each episode, we'll be diving into the minds of industry leaders to discover the strategies and habits that have propelled them to the top of their game. Join us as we explore the world of health and well-being entrepreneurship and learn from the best in the industry. Hey, this is Jared Woodruff. Welcome to the podcast. This is Vital Ventures, and I'm joined today by Dr. Elizabeth Baker, or Dr. Liz, as her patients and her staff call her. She is the owner of Maryland Farms Chiropractic in Brentwood, Tennessee. Is that correct?
Yeah, just right south of Nashville.
Awesome. Music town. Do you want to tell me a little bit about your backstory, not your educational background, but how you got introduced to chiropractic?
Yeah, so in undergrad, they kind of tie in together, but in undergrad, I was originally animal science major and biology major, and I was headed towards vet school. And in high school, I had been a cheerleader and injured myself, as everybody typically does, and started having some hip pain. And so back and forth to, if you're familiar with the University of Tennessee, we have an ag campus that's a separate campus from the main campus. So back and forth, walking back and forth, riding the bus back and forth, that started to aggravate a lot. And so I started seeing a chiropractor while I was an undergrad. I was about 19, I think, when I started seeing a chiropractor for the first time. Originally, I had been put on Celebrex, which is like a very strong anti-inflammatory, a prescription strength anti-inflammatory, but it started to make my heart beat really fast when I was walking. It started making me winded, so I stopped taking it. And that's kind of how I got into chiropractic as a patient on the front end. And then throughout my college career, as I decided I didn't want to be a veterinarian anymore, because a long story made short, a cat named Dumpster made me change my mind and decide I didn't want to go that route. I cried too much. And so then at the time, my chiropractor said, well, you've got all these credits to go to med school. Are you going to go to med school? And I was like, no, I don't think I really want to do that either. If I cry that a cat's dying, I'm going to cry that a human's dying too. So it just wasn't, where I wanted to go. So that's when she kind of pointed out that, hey, you have all the credits to go to chiropractic school and your patients don't die. And you actually get to help them improve without drugs. The drugs you obviously took gave you side effects. And she kind of started explaining more about chiropractic at that point. And I thought, that is kind of, I like that. I like that. And so that kind of put me more into going to the chiropractor more often, more regularly, to kind of see what it was all about, more than just when I came home from Christmas break from school. And that's kind of how I got into chiropractic, both as a patient, but at the same time deciding that was also going to be my career path, kind of simultaneously.
Wow. Yeah. And you know what? That story, I've probably heard it 20 times, because there's something about chiropractors. There's a portion of them that have a very similar backstory, where they had a problem that mainstream healthcare, which is a crisis-centered model, was not able to solve. And for whatever reason, every reason's always different, they end up seeing a chiropractor who fixes the issue, what seems to be dang near effortlessly. And they change directions and decide that's what I'm going to do for a living. So, that I think that's a testament to how powerful chiropractic care is. So how would you really explain the benefits of your care to someone who's never really experienced chiropractic before?
That's a very broad question. So I guess it depends on, what are their current ailments? Are they having symptoms? Is a good first place to start for most people, because most people understand the symptom model. If it hurts, what do I do to make it not hurt anymore? Or if it's not functioning properly, what can I do to make it function properly? That's kind of the basis of American healthcare, at least. Whereas chiropractic really, it falls under that perfectly, but you can also use it as preventative care too, where our country's not as good at preventative care as the rest of the world. But it is becoming more popular with like supplements and vitamins. People are very into taking a pill to help things proactively, yet they're not as good at proactively doing physical things for their body. So exercising and stretching properly would be another good example. So I guess it really depends on at what point in their health journey are they finding us versus what the answer would actually be. So if somebody had a symptom, then obviously they've already been having some kind of health crisis. So I guess in general, let's just use a headache as an example.
Hmm.
A lot of people get headaches. They're very common. And people think at this point that having headaches is a normal thing because they have them so often. And what we have to try to explain to them is just because you have them still does not make them normal. If you're having more than one a month, that's kind of chronic. I get maybe one a year, and it's usually from dehydration or maybe like drinking too much at the holidays or something I can equate it to.
Right.
And when I tell that
Right.
to patients, they're like, "Really? You don't get headaches?" And it's like, "No, that's not normal. You shouldn't have it. Just because it's common does
Exactly.
not mean it's normal." And that's really a problem that people have just kind of grown accustomed to thinking is normal. I should hurt as I get older. No, you shouldn't. I'm going to degenerate and get arthritis as you get older. Not necessarily. It's all in how you
Right.
prevent it in the first place. So going back to the headache example, that's one of the biggest problems causing headaches is actually a spinal problem, which most people don't know. And unfortunately, most medical doctors aren't even trained to look for. They're trained to figure out what type of headache you're having and what kind of pill might work best for it. So if it's a tension headache, they typically are going to prescribe things that are going to reduce tension in the muscles versus why are the muscles tense in the first place? Is it a postural problem? Is this a past accident, causing and creating this issue in the first place that was never truly corrected? There's many different causes for how things can become misaligned in the first place. And that's really where we come in to find out, is this a new problem? Is this an old problem? How chronic is it? How much is it going to take for us to get this as good as we possibly can at this point? Because that's another misnomer is you go once and you're fixed forever. That's just not realistic either. So that's really
Hmm.
the kind of answer if somebody's having symptoms versus the opposite direction. If you're young and you're trying to avoid getting symptoms, starting early with chiropractic is also great because you can go as a maintenance care routine, maybe once or twice a month to just kind of undo the stuff that's starting before you even feel it starting. And that's really
Yeah.
kind of the other magical power chiropractic has is we can keep you feeling good, keep you moving and working out and exercising and doing all the stuff that you might do for fun to try to keep your body as aligned as possible so that it doesn't degenerate. Those are kind of the two, I guess, opposite end of the spectrums for why people use chiropractic or the benefits of chiropractic. But that's
Yeah.
that's what we try to educate patients with. They come in with pain, but then we try to explain to them, now here's all the other benefits. But let's work on your pain because that's what you're here for. But also don't ignore the other good stuff you could be getting while you're here.
Yeah. You got to meet them where they are, at least at first.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I,
That's
I
all they
think you
know.
hit the nail on the head. Yeah. You're so right. At least I'm an anecdote, and any firsthand experience is just an anecdote. But everything you said, I know to be true. I spent time in the Marine Corps, and that's really hard on your body. There's a lot of weight on your body. There's a lot of impact. There's just a lot of extra work and abuse that is expected. And when I got out, I didn't see a chiropractor for many many years, and I would always be, I just always hurt or wake up with a sore back or a crick in my neck or an ache or have headaches, and just chalked it up to, well, the damage is done, right? The damage is done, right? I have the body of someone in their mid 40s, is what I thought. Well, as it turns out, seeing a chiropractor and just simply working out. I mean, I'm not talking about a huge commitment. I spend maybe 4 hours a week in working out. Um, I feel better now than I did when I was even in the Marine Corps. I feel
Mm-hmm.
virtually pain free. I never wake up with an ache or a sore, and I don't have headaches. Like you said, I mean, if I have a headache, it's because I didn't hydrate, and that's it. Or I'm sick, and I laid on the couch all day, and I have tension in the back of my neck, and that's giving me a headache. Other than that, they're not normal for me anymore. I used to get them more. So everything you said is at least true from my experience. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't have an interest in confirming your story. Confirming your story. It's just true. It's what I've seen to be
Yeah.
true. And I hear the stories from patients all the time, and it's really not that unique. So why do you think that so many Americans are in so much pain, have so many aches and so many ailments, and they think it's just normal? Why is that?
Well, some of it's just modern convenience, I think, is a big kind of lumps everything into one category would be modern convenience. We never
Okay.
have to get up from our desk at all anymore. If you have a desk job, you can do literally everything from your phone or your computer without having to get up all
Yeah.
day. You can order your food, have it delivered. You don't even have to stand up to make your food. You don't have to walk across the office to, talk to another coworker. You just type, 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 and there it goes. You don't have to walk, to the printer anymore. You don't have to walk to the fax machine anymore. You can do it all from your computer. So people just aren't getting up and moving. But also, we just live in a very toxic society now. Food is not healthy anymore. The air outside is not healthy anymore. People don't have time to go exercise or even do little simple things like 4 hours a week kind of stuff. And I think that our society is also a quick fix society. They do have an ailment and they want a magic pill to fix it because they don't want to put any
Yep.
extra effort into fixing it when the majority of our, sickness in the hospital or even people that are medicated are lifestyle choice diseases that really could be managed if they just change their lifestyle. Those are probably the biggest, I guess, spectrum of where the problems are coming from. Just as a
Yeah.
busy, busy society, everybody wants something done right now because we're so used to it being done right now.
Yeah. I mean, goodness, I think you're, I've been saying that for years, but I don't know. I'm just some guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. So the modern convenience where you could on any given Saturday you could sit on your couch and watch Netflix all day. You don't have to get up and change a DVD or rewind a
Mm-hmm.
VCR tape or anything. It's all there. You can DoorDash or Grubhub your food to your front door. You don't have to get up and go make you don't have to make anything. You don't need to go to the store. You don't have to move from the couch. You could pretty much stay on the couch all day except get up a few times.
Yeah,
And
go to the
that is
bathroom. That's about it.
why is that a problem? I mean, that seems to me like maybe that should be reducing the stress and strain on the body. Why does that actually create problems?
Well, our bodies are designed to move, and just in
Hmm.
the last 60, 70 years we've become more, stagnant and having desk and modern jobs compared to, the previous millennia where people were out having to go physically do everything to live and to function and to survive. And we've gone to pretty much, nothing. You have to do nothing to survive anymore. It's all at a push of a button and you have it. You don't have to think about, well, where's my next meal coming from? I need to go, find a deer, or shoot it and process it and do all this stuff, which would take all day. And
Right.
instead you just sit at your desk and order Grubhub or run through a drive-through or, whatever easy convenience food is at your fingertips. And even going to the grocery store is, pretty minimal effort for a majority of the people to still even make your own food at home. It's still very little
Yeah.
effort.
Going
But
to the
our
grocery
bodies
store
are
is even on the way
designed.
out.
Do what?
With grocery pickup, ordering online, that's
Oh,
even on the way out.
yeah,
My
that's even yeah,
wife
that's
is
even
a
easy
mother
too.
of three. She just does all of her shopping on her phone and goes and picks it up.
Yeah.
Like even that's getting easier.
But yeah, but even just with that, we're just not moving and our bodies are meant to
Mm,
move. Your joints need to move to hydrate. Your muscles need to move to stay, to stay stronger. And the more you sit, the less your muscles are functioning, the more your muscles are deteriorating, the more your joints are having pressure put on them without ever having the pressure taken off because sitting actually increases the pressure on your low back by about 200% versus just standing. So
really?
that's why people are yeah, that's why people find it a little more comfortable to do standing desk type work. Although walking is still probably the best because you're shifting your weight back and forth, so that fluid is pumping through your discs and through your and the blood through your muscles, and that then part of your circulatory system is from movement. It's not all from your heart. You actually have to move your limbs to improve your circulation, and if you're just never moving, that stuff's just going to putter out.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm getting smarter just by being here.
there you go.
So, yeah. Well, no, that's new to me. I didn't know that physical movement was necessary for circulation
Hmm.
of nutrients and fluids. I just figured your heart did all of that work.
Your heart does a big
But
chunk. Does I would say does more than 50% of it, obviously, but then the rest of it
mm,
is helped by movement. Same with your lymphatic system. There is no heart to pump your lymphatic fluid. The movement of your body is what does that. And we have a big problem of people having very tender tissues because their lymph is not moving like it should. Like if you ever get a deep
oh,
tissue massage, I get patients all the time that say, I hate massages. They're so painful. And that's usually because they have such tight tissue that their lymph is not even moving. So it's causing them to feel like one big bruise.
okay. Yeah, so I mean, I'll get an ashiatsu like twice a year, and every time my massage therapist, she says, okay, well, be sure you drink lots of water. You're going to not, be prepared. And it never comes. It
That's
just
good.
never, I'm not sore. I don't feel any of that. So I don't know. I don't know if that's either means I'm really broken or that means I'm moving
Well,
plenty.
some people will get physically sick because they have so much
Yeah.
toxic buildup in their tissues, and that when, they loosen it, it has to filter through your kidneys, and some people just can't handle that extra load of toxins, and it'll give them a headache, or even nausea, or
Yep.
sometimes, digestive issues.
Yeah. She was warning me about all of that, saying, hey, you're not sick, just to let you know.
Yeah,
You
it
know
can
you
happen.
might feel this way. Yeah, it can happen. And I always thought that was like, oh, that's you're just being overcautious or whatever. But no, that makes sense. There's
Yeah,
It's because I'm sure she massages a lot of people that work at a desk all day, then go
I'm
home
sure.
and sit on the couch and get under a throw blanket and watch TV all evening. And that's the American way. It seems like just more and more,
Unfortunately.
let less effort. And it's not just the American way though, is it? It's human beings. We are It is in our vested interest when we live a hand to mouth existence to find the shortest path, the least
Hmm.
resistance path. I mean, less work can be huge when, you know, you have to put out maximum effort just to survive. But I think that's not doing us many favors now.
Yeah,
Okay. So
we're
what
not
are
utilizing that extra time for anything good.
No, no, we're not, right? And we have a lot more of it than we really think. I know, and I know this isn't. I don't want to derail the podcast and talk about getting after it and just making time for things and sucking it up and figuring out where you're wasting your time, because we all have time. Like we waste so much time. We waste so much time. And I can tell if anyone tries to tell me they don't have time for something, I'll say, look, I get 6 hours of sleep a night. I have 3 kids. I run a business. I have a team. I manage X, Y, and Z, and I can still lift. I can still do this. I can still take care of myself. Like there's time. There's always time, but I won't do that. So I was going to ask, considering that, but for many people, it truly is difficult to find the time. I'm not saying it isn't, because maybe they have to take 3 different kids to 3 different sporting events, and then they have to try to keep up with the house, or try to keep up with long hours at work, or whatever their lifestyle is. And it is difficult to find time to live the way, or at least simulate a lifestyle, aka through movement, that we're supposed to. What is your solution to that? What do you tell patients
Mm.
that will or if they say, if you say, look, John, you need to exercise more, or you need to do this more, and he says, I don't have the time. Have you found, is there any way to help John out in any
I
way
mean, I will
whatsoever?
try to give some examples of some of the just bare minimum things he could do during his day sitting at his desk, but in most cases, if I had the answer to that, I'd probably be a bajillionaire because I'm sure a lot of people are trying to figure that out. I don't
Yeah.
have the real answer
Well,
for that.
all right. And I didn't expect it, but you miss every shot you don't take. I had to ask.
Yeah.
So, what are some common misconceptions that every week you find that you're having to dispel?
Yeah. I guess the couple of biggest ones that come to mind are if I go to the chiropractor, I'm going to have to go forever, which I guess
Mm-hmm.
there's a double-sided answer for that one. And you may have already heard this answer many times, but um, I always equate it to, well, most people continue because they like feeling good. They like to continue to feel the way that they've been feeling. And then I equate it to
Oh,
if you went to the dentist and they told you you did not have a cavity today, are you just going to stop brushing your teeth until your next 6 month checkup? No. They still want you to brush your teeth and floss like you're supposed to so that your next checkup will still continue to be good. And that's how I equate the maintenance care of chiropractic. Like keep going so that you can keep receiving those benefits of your body functioning at its optimum, ability. Don't just use this for chasing away pain because that's just keeping you in that cycle of symptomatic relief only when you can really be symptomatic relief but continuing to have no symptoms between our visits or between our sessions. And that's where people get hung up of I don't want to go forever, and it's like, well, don't you want to feel good forever? Like I never understand how to answer that because personally I can't imagine not going at least once a month. That seems like a extreme bottom of the barrel minimum of what somebody should be doing. I get
For
adjusted
sure.
almost every week. Unless there's something going on, I might get adjusted 2 or 3 times. But
Yep.
like I can't even imagine not going once a month because it feels so much better to go and to keep feeling good so that I can keep doing all the busy stuff that I don't have time to do other things for.
Oh
Um,
goodness, yes.
because
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
really what stops people from having time is they usually just feel like crap and they're tired. So it gives you
yeah.
energy, makes you feel good, and you can't use that as an excuse.
So I will send you. I don't know if we clipped it or not. I just interviewed a doctor when I brought that up. That common, very common misconception. If I start going, he'll never let me go, or she'll never let me stop. He lit up. He got so excited. He said, "Why is it that the poor chiropractor is the only one you don't want to see forever? You go to your dentist forever. You go to your barber forever. You go to your mechanic forever. You always your landscaper
You get
comes
your
and
nails
mows your
done.
lawn forever. You get your nails
Yeah.
done forever, ladies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you do all these things forever. Why is it the poor chiropractor is the only person you don't want to see forever, right?"
Yeah, that's a good way
And,
to put it
and
too.
it I was convinced. I don't know if it was his passion or what,
Yeah.
but he also
It's like
paired that.
Botox for your joints.
Yeah,
Even
yeah. I mean,
Botox wears off. You got to keep going back.
you got to keep going. If you like doing that and that's something you get, probably shouldn't complain about seeing the chiropractor all the time. But I'm
Yeah.
not judging. The
Yeah,
same
don't
doctor.
judge.
He
I get a little bit.
also
It's okay.
it's okay, but you also get adjusted. So you get
Yeah.
so this chiropractor, but he paired this by also saying that he believes an adjustment. If you can hold an adjustment for 3 days, you can hold it forever. And if you can hold it for 3 days under within your normal lifestyle, then essentially you have to get knocked back out of alignment. And he's like, you know what? And people misbehave. They play hard, or they use bad form or whatever. Stuff happens. Great comeback. But if your adjustment holds for X number of days, then theoretically, as long as you live within the bounds and you use proper biomechanics and you lift with your back and not your, or, I'm sorry, lift with your legs, not your back, you can theoretically go forever. He has patients that, there's 13 years between visits, but then he has patients where, it was 6 months later, the guy comes in for a checkup and he's surfing, all the time and has a very active lifestyle, and his adjustments held in 6 months. So it's not like, of course, then he has people that see him every week because that's what they need. It's not that once you start, you have to keep an intense schedule all the time.
Right.
You will,
And we may start
right?
somebody on symptomatic relief maybe multiple times a week
Yep.
until we can get the body to be stable and hold those adjustments. Because that's what I'll tell people is, they'll say, "Is it too soon to come back tomorrow?" Absolutely not. This adjustment may come back out in the next 6 hours just because it's not used to being in that place. Because you have to also take into account the muscles that are also malfunctioning and they're used to being out, and we're telling them to do a different job and they just don't know how to do it yet. So a lot of our active care is retraining the muscles more it is than keeping the joints mobile. So we
For
also
sure.
function or work on, the function of the muscles with the spine and the movement there. And I guess that's in theory why we don't hold our adjustments, because that's the other question is, why do you have to get so many adjustments? Because of your lifestyle. You're slouching, you had accidents, you've got, degeneration, your bones are moving differently because your muscles are not functioning properly. So we like to couple, some soft tissue work, some physical therapy in with our chiropractic care, to help support those adjustments so that they do stay longer. But I've had a few people that, they can go about 6 weeks before they really are in need of an adjustment, when in reality they probably could have come at 4 weeks, and they can push it to 6 weeks. And that's probably the most that I would recommend for most people, because it's
Right.
pretty rare to not need something somewhere, you know, fixed somewhere in your spine just because we
And I
slouch,
should
we
have made
sit,
that
we
more
drive.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 months, 13 years, these are extreme outliers.
Yes,
Extreme
extreme. Not that
outliers.
it's
The more
impossible.
common, not that it's impossible, right?
Yeah.
But the more common, or the median in the bell curve here is, I would say that 6 weeks is a long time. Like I don't go
Yeah.
6 weeks personally, right?
Yeah.
I'm every other
12 to
week,
14 days is
and
probably the common.
yeah, I mean, that's the sweet spot for me. For me, 2 weeks is longer than 2 weeks. I start to feel off. So 2 weeks kind of keeps the boogeyman away. And it's a great pace for me because, it is a bit, I have to like stop my whole day and stop everything I'm doing and like disappear for 90 minutes to go get adjusted. So, which again, it's like working out. You got to make time for it, but
Right.
it's nice that I'm able to only have to go every other week. I could stretch it out,
But you probably
but I'll
worked
tell
to
you,
get to that point.
I did. I didn't start off on every other week. I started with like a couple times a week when I got back into it, and then tapered out to a week, and then I've been at every other week. So 25 visits a year, right?
Yeah.
It's really not that bad at all. It's
No.
not a huge time commitment. And my doctor, he got he had a health issue for like 6 weeks and wasn't seeing any patients. And I'll tell you, those 6 weeks, that was rough. That was rough because I was absolutely out of alignment, and I was hobbling along and not firing on all cylinders. So it makes a difference. It really does. And this is not just the doctors saying this. Like I'm just a patient here. I'm not a doctor. It really does make a difference. So we talked about we talked about the misconception that if you start, you have to stay on it forever, as if that were a problem. What about any other misconceptions or bad beliefs patients hold?
I guess the other common one is people are just afraid of us. They think we're going to hurt them, which, I mean, I hate even talking about it in those terms because it's so incredibly safe. Um,
Yeah,
the instance of actual injury is so incredibly rare that when you do have one every like 10 years, it's blasted all over the news. So people just assume it's happening all the time. If they did the
not
opposite
you
for,
having one every 10 years. It's like the
I've
entire
never had a
profession
single
of
one.
80,000 doctors
Yes,
once every
yes.
10 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you hear about it on the news because it's so rare, and then it just
Yeah,
blows out of proportion, and people assume that it's happening weekly, but millions of people get
sure.
adjusted daily, and it's not happening. So that's
Right.
probably the other big misconception is, the flip side of it is if you knew what some of those over-the-counter drugs could do if you just took them a slight bit wrong, you probably wouldn't
Yep.
take them at all. I mean, those kind of things happen so much more frequently that you just don't even know about because, well, they just don't want you to know about that.
We have an opioid epidemic, and
Epidemic.
but we don't have an adjustment epidemic. We
Right,
have an
right.
opioid
Because
epidemic,
people
right?
are
So
afraid to take opioids now, finally, because finally it's come out how
yeah,
dangerous they actually are. But,
yeah,
chiropractors have been around for 100 and, what, 50 something years? 160
right.
years, I think, at this point, and we have an
Oh, and
excellent track
opioids have been
record.
around about that long, and it also took people this long to figure out, oh, they're not that great,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We're talking about using cocaine to wean yourself off of heroin circa 1890. Like they were
yeah.
wild times,
Well, they
and
used to put
people have
cocaine
just
in drinks too.
yeah, hey, it gives you energy, right?
Yeah, must be safe.
So yeah, must be safe. But all jokes aside, how much, if you don't mind sharing, how much do you pay a year for malpractice insurance?
Let's see, I'm 13 years in now, maybe $1,100 a year. I mean, it's pretty
So
negligible. $1,200 a year,
not
roughly.
so not even $100. Let's call it $100 a month. You spend
Yeah,
$100 a month. That's some people's date night, and that's to cover your butt in the case of malpractice.
for
What is
multiples of
malpractice
millions of dollars.
insurance?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Insurance rates, back surgeons or spinal surgeons. How much
Oh
does a
gosh, you're
spinal
talking
surgeon pay?
probably. I think OBGYNs and anesthesiologists, I think, are at the top of the list on what they pay a year.
Yeah, yeah,
In like
tens of
the,
thousands, tens
yes,
of
and
thousands.
closer to 100,000s probably for some of them.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And those are extremely dangerous. I mean, my stepdad's nephew about 20 years ago was a plastic surgeon, and his anesthesiologist killed someone in his practice. It wasn't her fault. This woman was on cocaine and failed to disclose when asked. But
Oh,
the fact is, that's how dangerous it can be. I don't think anyone has come out of a chiropractor's office in a body bag. Not to get morbid, but I don't think it's
No,
ever happened. As far as I know, it's never
no,
happened.
no.
So, so it's incredibly safe. Injuries, when they do happen once a decade, it makes national news,
Yeah.
and millions of people are getting adjusted a day. So out of billions of adjustments, so is my math right there? So a
I
billion
don't know. I don't
adjustments,
do math
roughly.
in my head.
No,
A whole
let's call it
lot.
let's call it 330 million adjustments a year
There you go.
over 10 years, like 3 billion adjustments, right?
Yeah.
One injury, those are pretty good odds. Those are pretty good odds.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
and
sure they're,
even to the testament of it itself, without, crossing any HIPAA lines here, but my
please don't.
malpractice attorney is actually a patient. I mean, he even knows because he sees this every day, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not worried about it at all." I'm like, "Okay, good." He's
Well,
like,
there
"I
you go.
know." He's like, "I use the studies to my advantage. I know."
There you go. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
incredibly safe. So why do you think people are afraid? Where does that fear come from?
The fear of the unknown, and probably just the bad rap that we used to get for the longest time, that people thought we were hurting people, and it just really hasn't gone away. I guess it's still that old wives' tale of what hasn't changed in the public's mind. Although more people are now bringing their children than ever, more babies are getting adjusted, so it is changing. But there is still that old, I guess, misconception still kind of lingering over our heads, unfortunately.
Yeah. Do do you often deal with this when a patient's in front of you, or is this kind of something you have to deal with before they ever set an appointment? At what stage in the relationship do you handle this fear?
Um, Usually it's on the very first visit
So they
because
came to
it's
see regardless of being afraid.
yeah, and some people, like if I meet a stranger, out at a restaurant or a party or something somewhere, sometimes people will say, "Oh, I've never gone because I'm afraid." Sometimes I'll reach that, but usually somebody sitting in front of me for their first visit, they maybe have tried everything else and now they're at their wits' end and they're like, "I'm just sitting here because I don't know what else to do, but I just want to let you know I'm terrified." Usually they'll start out that way, and that's usually why it comes up on their first visit, is just because they have tried everything else and they're just you know grasping at straws at this point to try to figure out what's wrong with them, or maybe we can help. And the reason they haven't tried us yet is because they're afraid, I guess, is a better way to put it.
I hear it all. I hear that all the time. How do you handle that? If let's pretend I'm your patient, I'm in front of you, and I say, "Look, Dr. Liz, I am terrified. I honestly, I don't know if I even want you touching me. I'm afraid of what you're going to do."
Yeah, so
Then
I
what would you
usually will
say?
start. I do nothing different other than try to ease their, stress about what's going to happen on that very first day. So the very first day, I typically will do just a consultation, and so I'll say, "Hey, all we're going to do right now is talking. Nothing scary about talking." They're like, "Okay," and then they relax, and then they, tell you whatever's going on. And then I said,
Hmm.
"Next, what we're going to do is this," and I'll explain. We're going to go to the back. We're going to go do an exam. We may take some X-rays. I was like, "Nothing scary is going to happen back there, but I am going to touch to feel what's going on, and it may be sore, it may be tender, and I'll try to go ahead and give them a heads up of what we're going to do." And typically they're like, "Okay," because as long as they know nothing scary is going to happen, they typically will calm down. And then what we do is we set them up for a second appointment to go over their X-rays, to go over insurance information if they have any, and kind of whatever my recommendations may be. And I'll say, and at that point, if you decide you want to start, we can start then, and then we can discuss more, at that point. So usually, if we can get them to that second, visit, they're fine, and then that's when we kind of address, how we're going to do this. And I say, we're going to do this very slow. I'm going to adjust you just like I would my great grandmother or a 2-year old. I'm going to use what force I need to use to make it move. It shouldn't hurt. It should actually feel very relieving. The most discomfort you may feel is just because you're so tender. I have to touch tender spots, and there's nothing that's scary about poking a bruise. And they're like, "Yeah, you're right," that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I try to kind of, I guess, dumb it down for what we're actually doing to make it sound less scary, so that they can push that fear out of their head to just let us get in there. But usually their very first visit, I do move way slower than I normally would, as opposed to somebody who's maybe been here for 10 years kind of thing. So,
I love it.
one adjustment, let them wait. Okay, how was that? See, that wasn't so bad. You're right. That wasn't so bad. Okay, I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna do it right here. Do it again. Okay, how was that? And basically hold their hand through their whole first visit and explain in a lot of detail of, okay, here's what I'm going to do next. This is what you might feel. And it's totally normal if this happens, that kind of stuff. So if XYZ happens, they're like, okay, that was what she said was going to happen. Cool. And then
I love
usually
it.
it's fine. And then once they have their first adjustment, they're like, I don't know what I was so afraid of. That was great.
Yeah, it's they do it once and realize they survive, and then they can't get enough.
Yep.
What do you take insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't like it, but I take it.
You don't? Well, I don't know a single chiropractor who does like it. It just I haven't met one, and I've met over 200. So you take insurance. Now, what if a patient wants to see you and you don't take their insurance?
Not a problem. We have, we'll work out a cash plan for them and, make it pretty similar as far as cost would be if they had the insurance, and try to help them out a little bit there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you keep their costs pretty close to their copay anyway.
Yeah, we try to. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, that's excellent. It's good to hear that you'd work with someone like that.
Yeah.
Are there any other common myths or just problems that crop up that keep people from getting the care that would benefit them?
I guess back to the insurance thing is that people only want to do what their insurance covers, which I know doesn't just drive me bonkers. It drives all chiropractors bonkers.
Yep.
Is I guess basing your health on some statistical number that an insurance company has put forward when they may give you 8 visits to fix a 40-year chronic problem. That's just completely unreasonable. And I will tell them, I was like, look, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I was like, you are in stage 3 degeneration and your insurance company thinks I can fix this in 8 visits. I was like, that is not even close. And what they considered fixed versus what they as the insurance company considers fixed versus what we would consider fixed are also 2 very different things. Because they have what they consider their benchmark of what that person's particular normal should be based on where they are. So an insurance company doesn't even really care if you're pain free. They just want you to be functioning better. They use the word function. Like, are you able to bathe yourself? Are you able to dress yourself? Are you able to do what you need to do at work? Then that's, as long as we can get you back to that, you're good. You might still hurt.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, you might still hurt, but as long as your function is back to where it was before this, flare up or whatever happened, that's about, what they care about. So, and then the flip side of that is another insurance thing is sometimes insurance will say, oh, these people have unlimited visits, which I also hate because that's also not a true thing either. There's a limit to what we are legally allowed to, submit for one patient's active treatment for that particular incident. So again, getting them back to that functional level of, are you bathing yourself, dressing yourself, doing your job, going to work? That's what they consider fixed and medically necessary. Even though they may have 60 visits a year, I may really only be able to bill 12 to 20 of them for that particular person at that time. And so that's kind of the other thing that drives us crazy is insurance. I just don't like insurance dictating care. I guess that's the short version of it.
Yeah, the way you put it makes me think of what people say about casinos. The house always wins.
Absolutely.
Like insurance sounds great. It sounds like, if I get, on the off chance that I'm injured or I get sick, I can use insurance and they're going to take care of me because they're betting that I'm going to be healthy. No.
Yes.
The house always wins, and they have their models and they know exactly what they're, insurance is a middleman between a patient and a doctor. And anytime there's a flow of cash and they're a for-profit company, it just makes sense that you end up in the long run paying more for care if you have, with the insurance model than if you just paid your doctor.
Mm-hmm. And that's very true. That's very true.
I mean, if you just look at the economics of it, it just how these companies wouldn't exist in the middle if there weren't profits to be made. And if there's profits to be made, that means they're taking some of the money you pay them, and the doctor doesn't get all of it. They get some of it. So it would just be cheaper to pay the doctor. Yeah. And now you wouldn't have to hire someone whose sole job is to just file claims and deal with insurance and chase down, your checks. So guess what? Your payroll's lower, your fees are lower, so you pay even less, right?
Yeah.
It's just
it would work out that way in a perfect world.
Yeah, we'll get each other really rocking and rolling and on the soapbox if we continue about insurance. So, yeah, I get it. you have a job, your employer pays for your insurance, you want to use it. It's a perk of your position. Um,
I would say
it'd
think
almost
of
be
it
better
more
just to
like a
get.
coupon versus a, full gift. It's not a full gift card that's going to pay for everything, but
Mm,
think of it like a
sure.
coupon that might get you a discount, but you're still going to have to
Okay.
pay a good chunk. That,
Gotcha.
that's kind of
There you
how I
go.
would look at insurance. Think of it like a
I love it.
20% off coupon.
We'll leave it on that. I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything else to talk about insurance. So we talked
Yeah.
about being stuck in care and never being allowed to leave. We talked about the fear of being hurt. We talked about insurance. Are there any other reasons that someone wouldn't get care besides not knowing?
Mm, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is the unknown, but um, in a super rare case, maybe somebody isn't a candidate for chiropractic care because they've already had their spine fused together. That would be the only other, they'd be beyond our help at that point if they've got everything stuck together that we can't move. But other than that, I mean, we
Totally.
see people that are, the youngest person I've adjusted was 18 hours old, and the oldest person I adjusted was 94. So there's really a wide, pretty much anybody, a wide range of anybody can really benefit
Yep.
from chiropractic care as long as your spine's not fused together.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your Rising Chiropractor of the Year award back in 2018. Why'd you get that? How'd you earn that?
Actually, a very cool award to get because you're nominated by your colleagues, and your colleagues are who vote on you for that. So I'm not
Really?
exactly sure what the criteria are for even getting on the nomination list, but apparently I made it. But I know we have
Okay.
two different Chiropractor of the Year awards. One is for a doctor that is 10 years and under in their career, and then the other one is 10 years and over. So I've only won the one from the 10 years and under because I graduated in 2010 and I won that award just 8 years later. But I did move my way up pretty quick from an associate doctor to owning the business that I still am owning. Um, I know
That
that
was
had
going to
something
be
to
my
do with it,
next
I'm sure.
question.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sure that had something to do with it, but
When so you were freshly minted in 2010, and when did you become an owner of your practice or the owner of
2013.
your practice? So
Yeah.
in 3 years, what did you do in those 3 years?
I associated with the previous doctor, and then she was just looking to change gears and shift gears, and I, offered to buy the business from her, and just kind of worked my way that direction. And then in July, I think, of 2013, I was the official owner, and I've been the owner since, the sole owner.
Awesome. What have you? What kind of changes have you made in the last? Was that eight? No, almost. Yeah, I guess 10 years now. What
Yeah.
have you been doing in the last 10 years? How have you moved the practice forward?
Well, immediately started doing a lot of things differently. Um, I
Naturally.
looked at well, I was taught. I didn't learn this on my own. I was taught this, through either books or seminars or mentors. That I am still a business, so I am technically still in sales. So I had to look at it from a business aspect, but also within a healthcare realm. So I had to learn, the insurance, the ins and outs of what we just talked about, and um, that's really what helped is basically running my business like a business, not like a charity. And that was the biggest difference that I made immediately. And I saw about 40% growth from the first 3 or 4 months just of switching gears in that direction,
Whoa.
which is a pretty significant growth for just a few months from
I
what we were
haven't
doing.
heard of growth like that.
Yeah,
Not in a,
it was,
like in startups, yes, but not in an established business. That's crazy.
yeah, it needed some work.
So
The previous business needed some work. So I was not
okay.
starting out at $1 million practice by any means.
So in the first 3 months, I'm gonna be nosy. What changes did you make that produced? Would you say a 30 to 40% increase in gross?
Yeah. I mean, the whole business just grew that much because I started running it like a business, whereas previously, the whole sales model, if your widget cost XYZ to make the widget, you need to charge more than XYZ to sell your widget. So that was the first thing is I figured out what does it actually cost me to see one patient at the current volume we're at, and I realized I needed to raise my prices. So that was the first thing I did immediately, was just raise the prices. And so that's probably a big chunk of it. But then I switched my marketing up a little bit too. The marketing we had been doing before was not that great. It was not up to date. It was not modern. And I immediately jumped into doing the ever popular Facebook ads, which I don't think Instagram was, well, I guess Instagram was a thing yet, but Facebook ads were brand new at the time. So I jumped in doing that. And so that helped us get, your face out there basically, because everybody is on Facebook,
Totally.
especially back then.
Yeah,
Before
especially
everybody
when it
left
was
Facebook.
cheap to advertise.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was so cheap. I
yeah.
mean, we
It
saw
was
we
it
saw
was
a
cheap and
ton
then it
of
got
growth.
expensive.
Yeah. It's super expensive now. Um,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what I started doing, was just using more modern advertising techniques. I mean, I'm a business. I still have to advertise. Um,
Yep.
I started doing Google ads. I guess those came along, and I still do those. Those are probably still the best thing that we do for getting new patients out there. But prior to 2020, I was also just going into my community and doing lunch and learns, just physically going and meeting all the people in the office buildings outside my window, because I'm in a corporate park. There's tons of people just sitting at desks, so that are, prime candidates to physically walk here if they wanted to. Um, and just, getting my name out there, because we're in a very congested area of chiropractors too. There's probably 6 chiropractors within a mile radius of my office. So trying to
Yeah,
get my
lunch and
name out
learns are
there.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Haven't been able to
They're
do them since
good.
2020 because nobody's in the offices anymore, but um, just haven't done one since, because it's a little harder to set them up now because everybody works from home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
I'll
definitely
ask.
changed
So
again.
I just interviewed a guy who does them all the time. He's not even a chiropractor. His wife is the chiropractor. He is a doctor of history. He's an Oxford educated doctor of history, and yet he's doing all these lunch and learns and preaching the word about chiropractic and spreading the gospel and bringing
Yeah.
people into the practice. But he does lunch and learns. I'll make a note to ask him how he's setting those up, because it
Yeah.
sounds like you would like to know.
And the biggest thing is just,
Am I-
finding a place that lets you come talk to them, because pretty much everybody's willing to have free lunch brought to their, employees, and make it look like a fun day, change gears that day, do something different that day. It's
Sure.
always nice to have a change to your routine.
Got to get morale up and production up,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. It's just been a
Great.
little harder
So
since 2020.
I know, and things changed, right?
Yeah.
And I think for every business, some things got harder, new opportunities opened up. It's some doors slammed shut and others came wide open.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that's easy. You still got to find the door and figure out how to walk through it, because not every door is the same.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's really meta and, and philosophical, but it's true. There's tons of new opportunities, even with massive changes. All right, so you started running it like a business. And some of the first things you did were you just did the math and realized, gosh, the prices are just way too low. We actually can't be profitable and grow our business and help more people at these low prices. We have to make them fair for everyone. So that's the first thing you did. Then you started running. Facebook ads were brand new at the time, and of course, anytime there's a new platform, it's super cheap. And then over time, that changes. So Facebook ads, I know that 10 years ago they would have worked amazingly well. Now they still do, like they still work. You just your ROI is just skinnier. That's all.
Yeah.
Facebook ad or Google ads, you're still crushing with those. I don't know anyone who really can't make Google ads work. And
Yeah.
lunch and learns, were there any other ways, any notable ways that you were bringing in patients?
I mentioned the radio show we had. That did bring in some patients there for a while. I did a health and chiropractic radio show for about a year. A
Yeah.
local one with another doctor in town, and our offices are just far enough apart that it wasn't any kind of competition. And we would bring,
Ooh.
patients into our office, or we had some buddies across town that if we weren't convenient, we would at least refer them to somebody that we trusted on the other side of town. So they got some benefit of us having that radio show too, just by, knowing us. But we did a
Yeah.
radio show through one of the local stations that went all the way from Kentucky to Alabama. So we were getting wide number of calls for definitely well out of our area, just asking questions. And, we'd call them back and try to answer their questions when we had time, and, help them find somebody in their area, because we obviously are not going to see people from Kentucky or Alabama. Although I have had a patient drive from Bowling Green, Kentucky to our office south of Nashville, which is probably an hour drive. And she was coming multiple times a week for a long time. And until I finally talked her into seeing somebody more local, I was like, you're just undoing this, riding back the hour back to the, back to your house.
Right.
But she was like, I just can't find anybody I like. I just like how you do it. So I was like, all right, fine, that's fine.
Like in Bowling Green, you can find someone. Like
Yeah,
you've
they
got
have chiropractors. She just didn't like them.
they've got chiropractors. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got chiropractors with all the same charm.
Yes.
So you did your radio show, man. You gave me this is a mouth or an underformed idea, so it's not going to sound articulate or very smart. But if you were able to get on a radio show that had a reach across, you said from Kentucky down, would you say North Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a huge reach. That's a
Yeah.
huge reach. I mean, I might be from the West Coast, but I grew up in the Southeast. I know how large of an area that is.
Yeah.
So the problem, though, more people were hearing were hearing your name and ultimately deciding, getting evangelical here, deciding to go find a chiropractor
Hopefully,
based
yeah.
on the message that you preached. So that's great and all, and that's a good altruistic reason. But it almost seems to me like you could resurrect that activity, but get a larger group of doctors and then take shifts. So
Yeah,
find a
so we
doctor
actually
in
we
Kentucky.
started
Find
moving in
some.
that direction.
Okay,
Dr. Jason and I continued with the show, but then we had like show sponsors like you will be the only doctor that we refer to in this area. You'll be the only doctor we refer to in that area. So we did have some people, we were able to monetize it a little bit by having some doctors in other areas that were, well out of I guess, our jurisdiction, our radius of our office.
yeah,
So we did start moving in that direction
okay.
and gave
But
some
what
other
about
doctors
having
opportunities.
them do an episode? So you're not doing it every week, and it takes a lot of the workload off. That's
Yeah, we
that's where
were
I
we were
was.
thinking of going in that direction, but we just decided it was still too much work because we were running full-time practices still. So
Sure,
it was a second full-time job at the same time I was having a full-time job,
right.
managing a whole
Now
separate business.
I know you have an associate, Dr. Powell. Did you
Hmm.
have? Was he there with you before?
No,
No, so it was
no,
just
he's
you.
been with me for almost 2 years. Yeah, he's
Okay,
newer.
so you were all alone. That would
Hmm.
be tough. That would be
Yeah,
really tough. So now that you have an associate, maybe get another associate. We'll see. You might have more
yeah,
time.
that would make more
Who
sense if I
knows?
could step away more. I would definitely need time to step away to do more time, devoted to something like that to make it
For sure.
good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful idea, and obviously it worked, right?
Yeah.
That's what's important is it got more patients to decide to come see a chiropractor who would not, on their own volition, have done so
Right. Because we
without
talked about
hearing
all
the word.
kinds of topics, not just neck pain, back pain, headaches. We talked about thyroid function. We talked about digestion. The
Yeah.
funniest episode, well, I guess funniest, most interesting episode we did that our producer was like, I don't know if you can talk about that on the radio. He had to have a little chat with us before, we did our first cut and then we went to the first commercial break. And he was like, I don't know that they'll let you put this on the air. We were like, why? He said, well, you said the word constipation like 3 times. I was like, that's the technical term for it. I was like, and it's actually a very
Yeah.
common problem. And that was the show that we had the most calls from was people not being able to poop.
How about that?
I know it was not the one we
It's
expected. You'd think it would be the headache one, but it was the pooping one.
there. Well, look, it's about finding people where they are, right?
Yeah.
And I have a very difficult time myself explaining and articulating that chiropractic care is not just neck and back pain. There's autoimmune conditions, thyroid conditions, gut problems, and sleep issues. There's all kinds of problems that have a root cause in the spine
Hmm.
that a chiropractor can fix without drugs, without surgery, without getting the run around in the medical system and having to do 5 different lab tests and deal with all this stuff, right? I mean, I appreciate the medical system, and I'm glad that I have it in this country. But I'll tell you, when I went to go get a checkup with my primary care physician, the homework I had to do was outrageous. And so do you think I went and did all that and got any better? Of course not. After I did, the 3 different appointments for the lab tests, and I have to go wait 3 hours in line to get an x-ray because they don't do appointments and like all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't. So if a chiropractor is able to solve all those problems, I can just go in and get it done without having to get the runaround. That's way better. So
And you're
I think
usually
it's
in
really
and out
important.
in less than 20 minutes.
Yep. I think it's really important that people, chiropractors continue to repeat the message that we're not just about pain relief. We're not just about necks and backs. Here's a comprehensive but that would be an oxymoron. Here's a non-exhaustive list of all kinds of conditions we can treat, because people just don't know at all. I'll tell a friend. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's not even the best terminology for it, because we don't directly treat those conditions, because treatment means we gave you something.
Okay.
We're just making your body function as it was meant to in the first place. So we're technically not treating anything, which I think is the what is it? What's the word for a word means something, but I can't even think what
You're
it is.
facilitating it.
Yeah, it's more like a medical doctor can say, yes, I treat this problem by giving this prescription for this, whatever. We're not treating anything. We're just clearing whatever malfunction your body is already creating on its own. We're basically
Right.
fixing the root cause of the problem. We're not fixing the problem. We're fixing the cause of the problem.
Right.
So it's a
And
little
I know you do.
different.
You may not be able to say treat.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on your state and
Yeah.
what the chiropractic board in that state has decided you can and can't say. But at that point, it's just semantics, because
That's the word I was looking for. That word.
Yeah, okay. So if
Yeah.
the end, who cares what the means to an end? I get that, it's all about the end, but who cares if the means isn't technically a direct treatment?
Right. And I
If-
think
if
that's
the-
what
if
people
the
get
end is
hung up
that-
on is, my doctor said you can't treat this. Well, technically he's right, but technically he's also wrong.
They're just
And I think
semantics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just wording, but yeah, we don't treat the
Right.
actual condition. We treat the malfunction that's causing the condition in the first place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if a patient said that, you say, absolutely, he's 100% correct, because we don't use drugs or surgery. We don't treat the problem. Instead, we correct what's causing the problem, and the
Right.
problem goes away.
Yeah.
We remove the issue that is causing it in the first place.
And it's like
And
a light
so,
goes on. They're
from a
like, well, that's what I want anyways. I want you to fix the problem. And it's like, right.
Yeah, exactly. They
Whole
just don't
different
know.
model of looking at it.
And when you just from a tactics and strategies perspective, when you're in that sort of sales conversation, because that's what you're doing, you're selling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't disagree with them and say, no, we do treat it, and then tell them they're wrong. You say, oh, you're 100% right. We cannot treat it. Instead, here's how we make it go away on its own.
Yeah, and that's absolutely how I would word it, because you never disagree with what they already think they know.
That's right, because no agreement has ever come from a place of disagreement, ever.
Right.
Ever. Yeah. So, radio show. Wow. I don't know how we got there from talking about radio. Oh, we talked about the message, the gospel of chiropractic care.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you've done all this marketing. Now, is there any other marketing you've tried that's worked?
Ooh. Yeah, it's not my favorite, but doing like screenings. Screenings historically always work. It's just they're such a pain in the butt to do them.
Yeah.
I don't know any chiropractor that actually likes screenings, but we all like the outcome of screenings. Physically doing them is a time waste. You get take your Saturday to go sit at a booth somewhere, and just meet the public. And meeting people in person is really the best way to get people in, and that has historically been the quickest way to get an influx of a bunch of new patients all at once, because they do typically work very well. It's just
Totally.
a whole lot of work to do them.
Can I ask you a question? Because it's interesting. I've heard this perspective, and then I also hear the other perspective where it's like, I love doing screenings. I want more screenings.
Well, because you get a
How
ton of
many
patients from them.
Yeah, how many patients would you get from a Saturday event typically?
I mean, I haven't done them in years because in my brain, I haven't needed to do them. But the
Sure.
last time we did one, I mean, we probably, 50 or 60 people just signed up in one day. And of those 50 or 60, if even half of them show up that next week, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for a day's work and you get, your month's quota of new patients in a week, that's always nice. It's just then you
Yeah.
have to do all the work of processing that many in that short amount of time. That's where the other rest of the work comes from. I like them spread
Yeah.
out.
It's like, I can't feel bad for anyone in that situation. I say, oh,
No,
boo hoo, you just made $70,000. Goo, I
right.
feel so bad for you, right? Or whatever. I don't know what the economics would be in your situation.
Sure.
So, one of the doctors that I interviewed recently, he had just done an event and got 40 new patients out of it, and he knows he's going to actually convert 25 of those based on his, because he knows his numbers. He's running a business. He knows he'll convert 25 to care, and his care plans. He runs a prepaid cash model. So for
Hmm.
him, he's like, I went and worked a weekend and made more revenue than a lot of people make an entire year. Like he's like,
Yeah. I
so
mean,
yeah,
yeah,
give me more,
absolutely.
pile them on, right?
Yeah. And
So
it
yeah,
just depends on if
screenings,
your office is equipped to process that many new patients in a week, after doing an
totally.
event like that. And that's really that's the difference from one office to the next is, are you mentally and emotionally and physically able to process that many new patients? So that's why some people don't like screenings, um, or they just suck at doing them and they're not personable and they don't get, a return on their time sitting there, which could
Sure.
also be an issue too. Because
There's a lot
if
of
you can't
variables.
pull a good percentage of the people you talk to come into you, reasonable, qualified people that are within your, radius of your office, because I try not to count people that are coming from another state or something. Like, I'm not a reasonable office for you to go to. I'm not even going to count that. But if
Right.
you don't pull those
Totally.
people within your radius, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard that too. Again, not a doctor, haven't done a screening, but those who have that have had good results, they say a lot of similar things.
Yeah.
It's, and they also will say, yeah, there will be another doctor there, but they'll get like 6 people, and I got 40. What's the
Yeah.
difference? Well, one knows what they're doing, and the other is unfortunately missing the mark somehow.
And they may be the
Usually in their
best
messaging.
chiropractor. They may be a better chiropractor than I am. I mean, they could have
Hmm.
amazing adjusting skills, but if you don't know how to get them into your office, it doesn't matter.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
I wish it was as
we
easy as they told us in school. Just hang up your shingle and you'll have a line around the block. I'm like, that's the biggest
that
BS.
that yeah, that is such a lie. That's just them getting you excited to graduate and get out of
Yeah.
there. Um, it's because we look at this and we'll look at a company that's a commercial success like the Joint. That is arguably a commercial success,
Hmm.
but their model is volume. They don't provide the same experience, which is a personal relationship with your doctor. They're constantly having high turnover with new doctors, and you literally are just a number. You're a file as a patient.
Yeah.
Now, there's a place for the Joint. I have had
Absolutely. I refer
a
people there all
cash
the
own.
time.
Yep, I had a chiropractor who's cash only, no insurance. Actually say, I like the Joint, and here's why: because they help people get care that wouldn't get it elsewhere. So
Absolutely.
there
Yeah.
is a place
Sometimes
for it,
people
and it's a
can't afford me or they can't,
right,
do the frequency I'm recommending. And I'm not going to change my recommendations just because they can't do it.
right,
But I'll say, you know what, this is better than nothing. They're great. They're great at adjusting down there. You can go, yeah, for this, whatever their monthly fee is, you can go as many times or as little as you want. They're not going to, hold
yep,
you to a care plan like I'm going to. I'm like, if you're going to do my plan, you have to do my plan. That's the biggest
sure,
difference is I get the results I get because of how I do it. And I can't have
exactly.
you messing up my numbers. And I'll tell them that. And they're like, okay.
And that leads me to my point, right?
Yeah.
The Joint is a huge commercial success. The quality of care, not that they have bad doctors, their model just doesn't allow for a really high quality level of care.
Right. Right.
Whereas, a great doctor who gets phenomenal results like yourself, you're not commercially. I'm not going to be nosy, but I already know you're not the Joint. You're
No,
not a commercial success with thousands of locations.
it's just
So
me.
just because you're a great doctor doesn't mean you're automatically going to be successful. And just because you're an average doctor doesn't mean you're going to be unsuccessful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
The two have nothing to do with each other.
Absolutely
Now,
not.
to an extent, right? If you're,
Yeah. I guess if you're just a horrible person, people are just not going to come to you.
yeah, totally, totally. Great. So screenings, was there anything else you've done in the last 13 years that has been a success for you?
I mean, just getting your current patients to refer family and friends. That's the easiest,
Of
free,
course, right?
cheap one.
Yeah.
Oh, we advertise in local magazines that go to the. I don't know if you're familiar with the Brentwood area, but it's like the highest income area, in the state. So we're in a nice county. Our area is affluent, I guess is a nice way to say it. It's the rich people.
Yeah, I
But we have
mean,
a
you're right there in
magazine
Nashville.
south of
You
Nashville. We're
gotta
not in
be.
the same county. It's a big
Oh, you're not in
deal.
the same county?
We're in the
Okay.
neighboring county. We butt right up to Nashville. It's
Gotcha.
10 minutes down the road, but and the county line's just
Oh,
like
okay.
two streets
Oh,
over from my office. But we're in the affluent side of things. I think at some point it was like in the top 10 in the whole country of income, so it's
really?
decent area. Um,
I did not know that.
yeah, this is where the country music singers and the
So,
football players live. But anyways,
of
we have a
course.
magazine that goes out to the zip code for Brentwood that gets,
Hmm.
delivered to all the affluent households. And so we've done a monthly ad for years in there, and people will they'll recognize me in the grocery store every once in a while, or they'll say they came in because they saw the ad in the magazine, that sort of thing. So that's another way I use that one as I call it a touch point. I don't expect to get a high turnover from the ads directly, but my face is in front of them every month
Yeah.
in the magazine.
Well, you're doing what I call it manufacturing fame, right? When you are being strategic about placing an advertising, knowing that it directly will not result in a high number of patients,
Right.
but again, it's a touch point. It's another place that you are being positioned as an authority and that your target market is seeing you.
Yeah.
So you're building up this image of authority and you're manufacturing fame. And before long, I mean, maybe in the next county over, you're a nobody, but at least
Right.
there, everyone knows you. That's the
Right.
point, right?
And that's kind of,
Great.
I look to try to get at least a 3-to-1, return on most of my marketing stuff, except for that. If I just get one patient a month, it covers the paid ad. And I'm, as long as I get one a month from it, I'm not really sweating how to pay for it and cover the payment for it, but I'm getting my face out there. And people, once they are patients, are like, "Oh, you're in that magazine every month. I thought I recognized you." It's like, yeah. And so then it kind of keeps you on the front of their mind too.
Totally. All right. Last thing, because our time is coming to a close here. We talked about all the marketing that's worked. What are some lessons of marketing that has not worked so well since you've owned your office?
Ooh, what's not worked? Oh gosh. Mailers, those didn't do anything. And again, it could have been something similar to the magazine, but I feel like mailers just get put right into the recycling bin or the trash can without even really looking at it versus a magazine where you're actively turning pages to look at
Hmm.
things. Um, that was a
Oh yeah,
long
it's
time ago.
interesting. So you
Um,
tried mailers.
Previous owner, so this was not my dollar, thankfully, but previous owner was under a practice management group that I won't name, that had us raising money for charity to give them a giant check so that we could use that picture of us handing over a giant check to charity for marketing stuff. And it got us squat, and she spent tons of money on that whole program. Um,
Yikes.
yeah. But charity got some good money, I guess. But then at that point, we were the
Yeah,
now
I mean
charity and
that's
needing
that's a,
money.
that's a benefit, but
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like that was why it was done.
No,
So
no.
wow.
Um,
Okay.
because they had us like, oh gosh, what was it? It's been so long. They had us like giving away free adjustments if people would just donate money to this charity. I forget what charity it was. It might have been like the Children's Miracle Network, something that was, decent, um, but it was like, but now we're just giving away care for free. That makes no sense. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Because these people may not necessarily be coming back.
right. And
Yeah.
they did, a lot of them did
Yeah.
come back, and eventually they paid
Oh,
for care
well, there you
again,
go.
but still, we were giving away a lot of care at that time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
So mailers, you did this PMG suggested to do something. It didn't quite go well, which is a
Mm-hmm.
charity event. Anything else that you tried and did it just didn't you couldn't get it to work?
I'm trying to think. I mean, eventually Facebook ads fizzled out. Same with Groupon. And I think our state's not allowed to do Groupon if we
Ooh,
take insurance. Um,
ooh, yeah, Groupon. Ugh.
yeah, and
There's
I
a
hate to,
place.
there's a place for those kind of things, but I don't think your healthcare services are where you want to be shopping for on Groupon. But
This is how
eventually, the
cutthroat
Facebook
it
ads
is.
do what?
I said, and here's how cutthroat Groupon is, and just how tough it is. I have a client, a longtime client, who's a dentist in Ohio, so not too far from you guys, and he's run Groupon and continues to do so, but he knows that he has to get 35 sales in Groupon to get one good patient. He's a more premium practice,
Yeah.
and he has plenty of associates. And he's like, yeah, I know people are moving in. They'll just go use a Groupon to try someone before deciding. So I know that I have to deal with 34 tire kickers to get one person who's going to come in and actually be a legitimate patient of mine.
Yeah, the quality of
Yeah.
patient is definitely not your standard, what you would ideally be looking for.
And then
They
your
might be coming
Facebook
from
ads
across
fizzled.
town, or
Yeah, or they just
maybe
jump around because they're like, it's 50% off. Oh,
yeah,
I'm gaming the system. And
yeah.
it's just,
And you get people that do that, and I don't have time for those people.
they don't care about their health, right? They don't care about your talents. They don't care about your hard work or anything you've done to help them. You can't help them. They're just
Yeah.
not worth your time. And that spot could have been filled by someone who actually cares about their health.
Yep.
I know
We had
that sounds really blunt and mean, but it's just the truth.
Yeah, we had an extremely high no-show rate with Groupon, and then eventually Facebook ads. They just don't show up to their appointments that they make. The initial
It's
appointments too,
crazy,
which
isn't
make
it?
no sense.
Yeah, yeah, and that's been a prevailing problem. The I don't know if it's cultural, but people just not showing up to
So rude.
engagements that they've commitments they've made,
Yeah, it's
and
super
a
rude.
lot
I
of
hate
it
it.
even yeah, it is, but we know we have to work around it, right? Make processes and systems to weed it out.
Hmm.
Anything else? So, or is it just those four really? Like these are the things I've tried that didn't work.
Yes, recently, and another one just popped into my brain. My Google ad guy. Um, we were also testing out doing Google ad surveys, and we quit running those after a couple months, just to kind of change it up and see how it would work and see if it would do anything different. And what he had was the ad would send you to a landing page, that then they would fill out kind of a stock survey for whatever it was they were searching for. So if they were searching for chiropractic, it kind of sent them to the chiropractic one. If they were searching for spinal decompression, it sent you to the spinal decompression survey. And we would have them kind of fill out, and they'd have to put their name and their phone number, and an email address, and whether or not they wanted us to contact them back about a consultation. Of course, I contacted everybody regardless of what they said, but we probably got, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 10 of those a week. And for a few weeks, we saw maybe one person from them. And, people would schedule, but then they would just never show up. So they were just about the same as those Facebook ads, as far as
Yeah,
seriousness.
yeah. The only way, so you have to take a deposit on those channels. It's going to
Yeah.
bring your bookings like crashing down, but those are all the people that wouldn't have shown up anyway,
Yeah.
right? So if someone is serious and you have a truly, if you're doing it, whatever you're doing, I don't know if it's going to be a New Year offer or you're just, putting it out there and there's no special offer of any sort or whatever it is. If it's just really easy to set an appointment next week and they have no skin in the game, they just won't show up.
Yeah.
You have to take a payment, even if it's
Yeah.
20% down, right?
Yeah. No,
Hey,
we used to take a $25 payment just up front, and people would still not show up. I'm like, what? You paid $25?
really?
Yeah, I know.
Well, you got to raise that because $25 in one of the top 10 income earning zip codes in the country is
That's
nothing,
true. Yeah.
right?
Well, we
It's
quit doing it
nothing.
anyway, so
Yeah, of course. Okay. So you're not trying to solve the problem. Well, great.
yeah.
Well, Dr. Liz, I can't believe it, but we are actually going to end pretty much on time. So
Yeah.